What can go wrong if that network isn't designed properly?
Everything. It's not anymore necessarily one human being sitting somewhere in a basement. It's huge criminal organizations, and they leverage AI.
Somebody who never met you can impersonate you. You're already playing in that same game when you have those things at home.
In that case, it was $25 million. Imagine, with a simple fake call, that not only the CFO was fake, but every single attendee in the entire call.
What if the next big cyber attack on your company isn't some Hollywood-style super hack, but a single rushed click from one of your own employees? Our guest is Alain. What if the next big cyber attack on your company isn't some Hollywood-style super hack, but a single rushed click from one of your own employees? AI is now supercharging cyber criminals, letting them build perfectly targeted scams at a massive scale, turning human error into your biggest vulnerability. In this episode, we're unpacking why your people are both your first and last line of defense against all of these evolving threats, and the critical steps you must take to train, protect, and empower them before it's too late. Stay tuned if you run a hotel, a factory, a growing office, or even just a smart home, because the same tactics that hit big companies can quickly start with you. Welcome back to the Marty Davis Show, where we turn complex business problems into clear, practical strategies you can actually use. I'm Marty Davis, a lawyer, working with businesses, an entrepreneur, and your host. Today, we're diving deep into cyber attacks, AI-powered scams, and how to protect your business in a world where everything from your smart TV to your production line is connected. Our guest is Alain. He grew up in Switzerland, obsessed with technology, worked hands-on in networking and telecom, and went on to manage global clients at a major tech company before joining Systems Crew here in Miami, an internationally managed service provider securing digital workplaces, networks, and Wi-Fi for organizations around the world. We're broadcasting today from Sun's Supper Club and Bar Betty here in Fort Lauderdale, a new innovative restaurant, a great place to dine and spend time with friends and family, serving classic American cuisine with an amazing vibe. If you haven't been here yet, you really should. Alain, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Marty. Happy to be here.
You know, it's great. I always like to have friends on the show that know so much more than I do.
And then I can go home.
Not at all. Listen, I have a hard enough time operating my telephone. I even call it a telephone. So it gives you an idea. Let's give people 30 seconds of context before we scare them to death. You said that as a kid, you already were taking apart calculators and playing with BIOS on your first computer. What pulled you into the world of IT and cybersecurity in the first place?
I would say that was probably my imagination. I was fascinated by technology from a very young age, and taking apart these calculators, honestly, I had no idea what I'm doing. So I was not a genius. I was just fascinated in taking it apart, pretending I built a spaceship. And then later on, we had our first computer, and of course, I mainly used it to play video games. Now, back then, that was in the mid-90s. Those systems were not so performing as what we know these days, so oftentimes we had to use some little item called boot disk. You may or may not remember that. You're younger than no. So is
that something that goes in a shoe? Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So basically, in order to start certain games, you had to put in a boot disk first.
Oh, yes.
And then you take that out again.
It's like the 8-track tape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I thought that is so stupid.
Uh-huh.
So I started to play around in the BIOS with that, of course, without my dad knowing what I'm doing, because else, boo. But I figured out how to tweak the BIOS so the system believed it was more powerful than it actually was, starting up these games without the boot disk. I guess that's like, yeah, I was just the
I need
nerd.
your help with my partner because he continually thinks he's smarter than I am. So I could help me with that if you could.
That's a whole different
It's
episode.
a whole different episode. Okay, well, very good. Well, obviously, my next question was, once you took them apart, were you able to put them back together again? And you answered that question already,
Right.
it sounds like. So congratulations, and your parents weren't probably that mad. You didn't go to traditional college route. You went to vocational training, and then into networking, and then into roles with global clients, and now to system crew.
Exactly.
What's the one lesson from that journey that still shapes how you protect companies today?
You know, I think, so first, maybe go one step back to the vocational training. That's a very common approach in Switzerland and in parts of Europe. In Switzerland, it's about 65 to 70% of all like high school graduates choosing the vocational route, which allows us to learn a specific profession hands-on. So in my example, I started out as an electrician because I knew I want to go in that network technology, but that was not a job back then. So you had to find somehow a way in. That took me 4 years. That's like an official program. And then you just do step by step, always like educating. So the key takeaways were really that you start hands-on. You really understand what it means to sit next to that person who is not able to access a file anymore, who's freaking out, who's losing patience, who is yelling, etc. And you can really much relate what it means to work these like late hours somewhere in a server room. And, you know, again, like if you have a certain ability to imagine things, then you start to look at these systems and automatically see like, oh, that's actually a vulnerability. Oh, here's a vulnerability. What can I do that nobody is abusing it? And I think that's like this, like hands-on from a very early stage of the career. That helps me today to understand really how to help businesses to protect themselves.
Well, and I found, as someone who knows nothing about computers other than turning them off if they stop working and then turning them back on as the quick fix, and then when that doesn't happen, I have to call someone. But the people that are involved in the repair work or building, they all seem to understand the language of a computer and kind of how the computer thinks, and which is, you know, completely out of my realm, and I think most people's. And so I'm sure that vocational training and that practical Swiss approach is very helpful. And also, from the side of, well, what would an employee do and what would they not do, or what would they forget to do or not think about? So I can see where that would be very helpful. Okay, so you're not just the fix me printer guy. You're someone who's been inside real networks and is figuring them out and thinking about how they think. With real networks, global accounts, some are very vulnerable in their environments. So let's talk about what actually is happening out there in the community. Why are things having such vulnerability?
Well, I would say we live in a very fast world, and vendors have to come up with new products, new solutions all the time. It's this head-on-head race all the time. So I think it's in the nature of us humans to launch a new product because you want to be the first. And then everybody is like, oh, there's this, we have to compete with it. We bring ours that is not entirely done yet, but it's good enough. That is probably one thing. The other thing is as well that nowadays these softwares are so large, the code is so long, it is really, really, really hard to spot every little flaw. And I think that's what the hackers actually do, right? They look for the flaws in the system. And
so they have lots of time to spend to look over to find that, where the producers are busy trying to get it out ahead of the next guy.
True. That's their job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You joked in our pre-interview chat that IT used to be a guy who fixed the printer and computer issues, and now it feels more like you're working for the CIA because all of these hacks and whatever the terms are now, phishing and whatever. What's changed in the last decade that made cyber so dangerous?
I think it is really a combination of different factors. For sure, social media. We publish so much personal data online, whether if it's in the funny ones like Instagram and TikTok and all these good ones, or in the professional networks like LinkedIn, because we want to shine, we want to get recognized, hired, whatever. So we share a lot about our lives to virtually everyone. That's the first one. The second one, the shift to the cloud. Shifting to the cloud is amazing. It supercharges productivity in many, many ways. But you don't hold that floppy disk anymore in your hand. The data is out there. And when it's out there, yes, we can protect it, etc. But it is not in your own little safe anymore. That's the second one. And I think the third one now is really that we can use AI to supercharge attacks. So it's not anymore necessarily one human being sitting somewhere in a basement trying to hack something. Those still exist, of course, but it's huge criminal organizations and they leverage AI for the bad, like we use it for the good.
Yeah. So then there's thousands of people or devices,
Bots,
going after this.
Yes.
When you combine hyper-connected systems, data in the cloud, and people sharing their whole lives online, what does that actually mean for a business owner watching us right now?
Well, I think it is important for everyone, whether if it's a business owner, an employee, a private person, to understand that with all that information that is out there, whether if it was shared voluntarily or if it was shared through any of these major breaches that we always hear, not to blame any companies, Amazon breach, Google breach, Apple breach. There's so much information. You can think of it as like a huge, huge puzzle. All these little tiny pieces are around. In the past, it would have taken years or maybe lifetimes to put that puzzle together to figure out for somebody who never met you who is Marty. But now with AI, we can really go after certain little bits and the AI models come up with a perfect clone of you. So somebody who never met you can impersonate you. And I think that is one of the big dangers, that this AI can be used to really supercharge. We're not just saying it because it sounds cool, but it's really a supercharging of these processes.
So, I have friends that are doing AI and they take pictures and then they turn the pictures into a video and the video looks just like, in fact, someone was doing one of me and I was standing with some balloons. It was recently my birthday. And I'm standing there with holding a balloons that people had just given me. And they took that still shot and animated it. So I was on a video doing a dance and then doing a backflip. And I'm looking at it and knowing that I can't do a backflip, I know that wasn't me. But outside of that, no one else would have known it wasn't me because it looked just like me. At least my face. My body certainly can't do that, but that's a whole other story. We've got a plastic surgeon coming in later. And to be clear, this isn't just about Fortune 500 companies, right? We've got a smart TV, a laptop, my friends with their camera, and social media accounts at home. You're already playing in that same game when you have those things at home, right? And we don't have those same protections that these big companies have. So what should people be doing to protect themselves on that, very small scale?
There are a few things you can do. An important one, it sounds always so cliche, always update all your devices. If there's an update, do it. And this is tough for me as an IT guy because there was a time where we always waited with updating devices because we did not want to be the first ones who basically are the beta testers.
I see, yes, the guinea pigs, yes.
We gave it a little bit, but nowadays we're talking so-called zero-day attacks. So those are attacks that go after vulnerabilities that have never been seen before. And once those are discovered, then the vendors try to fix it as quick as possible, of course, and publish that new update. And that update then fixes that vulnerability. So I think updating devices or software on a regular basis is very important. A second one is this common misbelief that an iPhone is secure. It is not. It has certain capabilities the way it is built, as long as you don't jailbreak it. As long as you don't hack it, basically, and just use the apps from the app stores, it's relatively safe. But also there is no 100% security. Free is not always free. So a lot of people download the free antivirus, the free this, the free that. It for sure can help, but it may not. And the last thing is, it's very, very, very important to take a moment before you click and always be suspicious.
Yeah. No, because there are so many things now that I get, whether it's an email or a text, and they all seem so real.
Yes.
And, and I can only imagine, you have an employee and they get some email that looks like it's a business thing that says, please reply or download this. This is something new. So what do you do for businesses like that? Do you just tell them, how do they know what to download and what not to download?
Yeah. Traditionally, our clients or our services, I have to say it like this, our services are so-called managed services. So ideally, we onboard the client in some sort of our ecosystem. It's always specific to the client. So we don't force the client, you have to use this and that and blah, 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 because of course, different industries use different tools and processes. But we take over that management. Once they work with us, they have us as a dedicated resource who keeps basically track. Is everything up to date? We monitor the network. Are there any fishy things going on that should not happen? We do a lot of in-person awareness trainings for the entire staff.
That's great.
And that's actually something really fun. We go to the companies, we start with a quick assessment to understand how they work. And it doesn't matter if this is a 20, 200, 2,000 employees company. We want to understand their processes. How do they work? After that, we research the most recent successful attacks in that industry.
Okay.
And then we tailor a classroom-style education, which usually takes 1.5, 2 hours, where we bring real-life examples, show what can happen. Sometimes we also show little devices to show, look, this is right now, you, not to finger point, but you are on a fake Wi-Fi. Did you notice that? No, I had no idea. Okay. 3 of you just scanned that QR code out there because they believe that they get a free drink. We basically teach by example.
Right.
People like that. We always have a question and answer round. Most of these dull online trainings, you click through Friday evening because my manager yelled at me already 5 times. I have to do it, else it's a HR case. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, I do it. I go with my friends, have my beer. I forgot everything on Monday.
Sure.
And once we're done with that, we start phishing simulations and so-called pen testing, where we try to trick the employees still into clicking on a link.
Great.
Or we try to get access to a perimeter somewhere, like somebody dressed as a maintenance guy walks in and tries to plug in a USB stick or leaves that suspicious, interesting USB stick somewhere, which is so old school, but it still works.
Yeah.
So
that's
a little bit like,
Well, and so many people probably aren't going to know that So until they get into a class like that, or
Yes.
and maybe if they're like me, you think, well, no one's going to do that. I'm going to look at all those. I'm going to know, and I won't click on that. And then all of a sudden, something pops up, and the screen says you've been hacked, and right? And that leads you to another place.
Yeah.
And if you follow that, then you're really in trouble.
Then
So
you're really in
yes,
trouble. And this is exactly where we're talking social engineering. This is like for me, this is like the most exciting part almost of cybersecurity.
Sure.
Because now it's really like, how do I trick a human into falsely trust me? And what I just said.
Give me an example.
So example, if I am dressed like a maintenance guy and I want to access your apartment building, and I just follow you like really confident with my little toolbox and everything, you probably even hold up the door and say, "Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good day. Back, I'm in." For example, in a bank or somewhere, well, usually they are a little bit more hesitant, but it happens. It's easy. You just follow somebody into the building to get access. Now you pretend you're the printer maintenance guy. You install a little device there. There's a network outlet. You just plug it in. Nobody is gonna question what you're doing.
Yeah,
that's a perfect example. The others are the well-known one, which we still fall for, the QR code that just is somewhere available, and it's so easy to just scan it, and now it gives me that wonderful once-in-a-lifetime opportunity mega deal. So all of those, it's yeah.
So when you do those QR codes like that, then you're looking at that, something pops up on your screen, and maybe it's you give them your email address and your phone number, and they're going to send you a $10 certificate or a $50 or a free trip to, Disneyland or something. But so when they do that, then they have access to what's going on in your computer. Is that what you're saying?
There are different ways if we stick with that QR code. The QR code scam most of the time targets on a quick few bucks. So, for example, in Miami, they had to remove all the QR codes from the parking meters. You were able to go park your car, scan the code, pay, right? They had to remove all these QR codes because the scammers just went there. They put their own QR codes.
Oh, and then you gave them your all your credit card information.
Exactly. Now you're running late. You're gonna park. You do this back. You are redirected to a website that looks exactly like the Park and Pay app or whatever, and it somehow tells you, "Oh, you logged out." So you re-log in. Problem number one. If you reuse your password and your username, which we should not, and many still do, the criminals already know your password and username. They're going to retry that
on everything else.
Exactly. Now, the second thing is they are now accessing your credit card.
Yeah.
So you enter your credit card information, you pay them instead of the city.
Yeah.
In this case. If you're unlucky, you even get towed.
There you go. But that's not the worst of the problem. They've got all your credit card information, and they're busy buying a new car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. So there's a deeper side to all this too. Fake video calls from the CEO asking for urgent transfers or a problem, and it sounds like it's a family member or it's somebody that's your boss's boss saying, "Do this," and I'm telling you to do it now. Describe that scenario and how it really can look for an employee.
Yes. I would say welcome to Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
So now we're really there when we explain people what's possible with these deepfakes, where what you just mentioned, Marty with the backflip and the balloon, that was the fun part of it.
Yes.
With a big digital footprint, photos, audio, criminals can copy Marty. They can copy me. Don't do it. And with that information, they can build basically a digital twin of you. Now, there are a few public cases. I like to talk about this one case that happened in 2025, early 2025, I believe it was. It's an international engineering company. That incident happened in Hong Kong, but it can happen everywhere. It has nothing to do with that. It's an employee who was invited to an irregular Zoom call in his address line, all like well-known addresses of colleagues, Zoom call about something urgent. He joins that Zoom call. He's in the video Zoom room with some of his colleagues, some of the managers. And they're somehow talking about an important merger or whatever. And during that meeting, the CFO addresses that person. Let's call him Paul. Mm-hmm. And they tell him, Paul, by the way, it is very, very, very essential and urgent that you make these transfers within the next 2 hours. We need to close that merger or acquisition or whatever it was. And of course, because of stocks and blah, 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 this needs to be absolutely confidential. So Paul thinks, it's a lot of money, but the CFO told me.
Yeah, and I'm looking at him on Zoom, right?
Yeah, no. He's telling me. Probably he's even proud that he's like,
yeah, right. Wow, I got a call. Yeah,
that, right?
No. Uh-huh.
And he's shortly after he's receiving the instructions via email with an email that looks exactly correct, like perfect duplicate.
Oh my God!
So he's transferring this. In that case, it was $25 million. 25. Imagine with a simple fake call. The most amazing part of this story that strikes me was actually the fact that not only the CFO was fake, but every single attendee in the entire call. So they did their research.
Yeah.
Who is he working with? And you find that out using, again, social media, professional social media platforms, etc. So
wow, that's amazing. They staged the whole thing.
It's a super.
That's why you call it Hollywood. Yes.
That's why you call it Oceans. What would that be? Oceans 29.
That's right. Yes. Get the casino.
Right.
I've heard people say, well, just get cyber insurance. You're covered. You compared that to riding a motorbike into a wall at 60 miles an hour without a helmet. Explain the analogy.
You can look at this from that aspect. Let's say you have a motorcycle. You have insurance. You may or may not have a helmet. Mm-hmm. Even with 60 miles, probably even with the helmet, it doesn't really matter. You ride that motorcycle in the wall. Now, you have more or less two outcomes here. Either you are heavily injured, and a big chance that you're gonna live with a disability for the rest of your life, or you're dead. So these are the two outcomes. So now you have insurance, and that insurance covers either parts of your rehab, mm-hmm. but chances after such an accident are really high that there is some disability that will persist rest of your life.
Right.
Or you're dead and you had life insurance. Your family gets some sort of a lump sum.
Right. But you're still dead.
But you're still dead. In both cases, the damage is there. You get a little bit of money. When you adapt this to a business, let's say the criminals do what we call a ransomware attack. Mm-hmm. Ransomware attack is where they install basically a malicious software, a virus, whatever, on your machine, and all your files or all the files on your server are encrypted. And only the criminals have the key to unlock it. Now they ask you to transfer a hefty amount in Bitcoin. You have 24 or 48 hours, else they delete everything. You can never recover, restore, whatever, unless you have a clever backup. Different topic, but you don't have it, you gotta pay.
Yeah.
Now cyber insurance is paying maybe a little bit. However, they were able to encrypt all your files. At the same time, they also downloaded all these files. They know everything about you, about your company, about your employees, clients. They're gonna reuse that either for a next attack or they sell it in the dark web. You may or may not get some reimbursement from your cyber insurance. And with that, you can re-establish operations. But the damage, the reputational damage is done and the data is stolen. The criminals will not come back and say, thank you, Marty, here,
Yeah, here, we'll give it all back to
we
you.
give it all back.
No,
because
now they can do it all again.
We
Yeah.
have, exactly.
Right, or do it again to some of the data that they got and choose another company.
Exactly.
Yeah, clearly. So what you should be doing is not driving into a wall or, driving a Hummer.
Yeah,
so, yes.
True.
So you've called the employees that first line of defense.
Yes.
If 75 to 90% of attacks involve a human somewhere, what are companies doing wrong in how they train their people?
It's a tricky question. I think oftentimes, perhaps especially like the smaller companies, they have this like, it's common sense. You don't do it. Like we all know you don't do it. Well, still, I'm the professional. I can still be tricked.
Sure.
It always plays with emotions, with a sense of urgency, or with that deal that can never, or just the best deal ever, or whatever. So I think we really have to be always aware, and we have to be aware that we are not aware. And then with the larger companies, depending on certification level they have, they are required, or depending on the industry, they are required to do such trainings. But such trainings are often dull, online based, as I said earlier. And then it's exactly this. I've been there. I have to do it. My daily business, I'm finally done Friday evening. Okay, click, 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 click. Oftentimes what's happening is even that the teams work together and they say, okay, you do the first 10 questions, I do the second 10. So, and because it's like this multiple choice, in the end, that kind of, the blueprint is shared with everyone. So it's tuk, 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 tuk. Half an hour later, everything is good. And you passed the test, but you did not really learn.
Right. So they're not getting a interactive program for their employees. They're not getting one that is memorable for their employees.
Yes.
And that's something you do in your business, is that training, correct?
Exactly. So we offer these trainings, and we make sure that because we are in such a fast world, we make sure that our trainings are always up to date. We literally sit down with the leaders of that company, but also with some of the employees. So we put together like a little task force, if you want so, and we talk to them. We want to understand how they work on a daily basis. Do you use multi-factor authentication, all of that good stuff?
Sure.
Yes, no. And we all take that into consideration, because it doesn't do any good if we go and we teach by the book, but that company has a way different way to operate.
So number one, it needs to be customized. And number two, that employer should be aware of the scuttlebutt, basically hearing from the employees that, oh God, we have to go to another training. Because that's the first key, that the training was ineffective because nobody wanted to do it.
Yes.
Because quite frankly, this stuff is kind of fun to hear and interesting. So I would think employees would want to do it on a paid time, and they're learning for themselves as well as the company, right?
Yeah. And if you can do it kind of entertaining, then people are interested. They go and they have a chance in the end to ask questions with these online trainings. And those are good.
Yes.
But they lack certain features, let's say. And if we do the in-person, we have the possibility to engage.
Sure.
And people sometimes have questions and they are like, maybe it's a stupid question. There is no stupid question, because that's exactly what this whole like social engineering targets are, these insecurities.
Sure.
So
make them aware.
Make them aware.
Because I've certainly never attended an online seminar where I was busy doing emails or something else while the seminar was going on. Come on. That happens all the time. So let's start with hospitality, which is a big business in South Florida. And hotels and restaurants are everywhere. You painted a pretty scary picture of hotels, thousands of guests logging in, their laptops, their phones, smart TVs in every room, the devices all over the property, so that you've got internet in the lobby, internet by the pool, internet at the restaurants, and maybe they're all the same, maybe they're all different. What can go wrong if that network isn't designed properly?
Everything. A hotel specifically is one of these places where people from all over the world come together. They sleep in a room next to each other. They have never seen each other. It's actually crazy. However, when you travel and you go into a hotel, based on the hotel you choose, but usually you want to go into a hotel where you feel home, safe, secure, a moment to relax. You maybe check into your hotel room. It's like, oh, finally I'm here. Okay, I'm gonna let my family know that my travels went well. And then there's like this last email you want to do real quick, and maybe, oh, I have to do that last bank transfer. And then I can finally close my laptop and it's vacation time.
Mm-hmm.
And that false sense of security is actually dangerous. A guest Wi-Fi, if not set up meeting the very modern standards, is a very dangerous place actually, because you share an internet network with all the other guests from all over the world. And I'm not even painting a picture where I say, your neighbor in the next door is waiting on the laptop until you put something in. No, the chances are higher that this person already has some malware, a virus, a worm on their machine. And that worm is only waiting for somebody else who doesn't have the proper protection to be in the same network. Bloop, bloop, it spreads over there. Now you have it. Now you go to the office in a week again, you put up your laptop, you're in that network, maybe your office network is also not up to date. That's how this all spreads, right?
So it's kind of like you bring the disease home with you.
You bring the disease, so not always, not everything that happens in Vegas
stays in Vegas. I like that, yes. And in my mind, I had this picture of saying, well, don't trust the internet if you pay for the room and there's a piece of glass between you and the person that you're giving the card to.
Yes.
And not that I've been to one of those, but I've certainly seen them and heard about them.
Yes,
and
exactly.
So, no, that's amazing. I never thought about something that would get into your computer and then you bring it back home, or you bring it back to the office.
Or you bring it back to the office. Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
So.
And that's just one example, right?
Yeah.
I mean, now if the network is not built in the right way, all of a sudden that specific computer may be able to even spread to the operational systems of the hotel.
So they could get it back on their own. Yeah,
exactly. So therefore, it's so important that these guest Wi-Fis, and I know for many hotels, this is more like a burden because you have to have it, but it does not necessarily bring a big revenue.
Yeah.
However, it can pretty fast turn into bad reviews. So what do you want? You're going to do a system that is easy to use for the guests, that is low maintenance for your receptionists, but often lacks security.
Yeah. So they're investing for their protection as well as their guests and the reputation that the guests share with everybody else.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, now. And I suppose those same things happen if you're going to a conference and you're, I go everywhere and people are saying, so what's your Wi-Fi code?
Exactly.
Whether it's a restaurant or at a conference center or whatever. Yeah. So all those things can happen at all of those places, right?
Exactly. Especially what you just said. What's your Wi-Fi password is a strong indicator that this Wi-Fi is not secure, because it's that password that whole South Beach knows. There is no mechanism in place that protects the separate computers in there. It's just like this big computer.
There you go. Like airport lounges and stuff like that. Same story.
True. However, the ones where you log in, there's another like dangerous element to it, but just from the concept, the ones where you log in, you get a login page, you enter your email address, you have to verify with your phone number, you will get an SMS code. There's oftentimes a little bit of smarter intelligence behind it that made sure that other devices in the network don't see your device. And also after a certain time, a timer logs you out again.
Okay.
So
all those things make it more secure.
All those things make it more secure.
Okay. Let's talk about system crew.
Yes.
When a company calls you, what situation are they usually in? Are they being proactive or are they in crisis?
Both. We offer the entire operations. So that means we handle project business. We handle day-to-day operations, change management, etc. Updates of the computers, adding something new, etc. That's usually not a crisis, right? That's more like, hey, gonna have a new employee, please prepare a new laptop for us. We have a cloud migration, whatever. But then, yes, of course, we have these moments as well where clients call and it's like, blue screen, nothing works. We lost data. We need you to recover damaged files, whatever. So usually it's more operational and not so urgent.
Okay.
But we have those, of course, as well.
And clearly, if you were there before the attack hits, they're far better protected. And
Usually, yeah.
if you do have more protection, is it that the damage is much less, or is there no damage, or how does that work once you've gone in and then, because I've been told it's not if you're going to get hacked, it's when.
That's actually true. That's actually true. And there's no answer that fits everything here. I would say if you have like a stable defense line with state-of-the-art cybersecurity systems, let's call them just that, chances that something happens to you are lower than if you don't have it. If something happens now, you most likely have systems in place to mitigate the damage. Now, if we talk these encryption, these BitLockers, these ransomware attacks, if we set up a clever backup and disaster recovery scenario, then we can recover data before the attack happened.
Right.
However, under certain circumstances, you lose 1 to 3 days of work, but for sure not your entire database.
Which, yeah, clearly a big difference.
Yes.
For any business watching, hotel, factory, agency, what are the 3 must-do steps that they should take this year to dramatically reduce their cyber risk?
Yes. Number 1 is really call us, let's do an assessment. It really starts with that assessment. We need to understand, and you need to understand, are your systems in place really working? Are they still up to date? With AI, things change basically on a daily basis, so you have to do this once a year. Ask yourself if you need additional education, these trainings, etc. Make sure that everything is always updated. That's one thing you can do, or you have somebody like us who manages your systems. And I would say the last thing is having that incident response plan. So having a plan ready, and we help with that as well, what to do if an incident happens. Because the worst thing is incident happens and now you're running around like the chicken without a head. Ooh.
Yeah.
So at least you can take out that piece of paper. Ideally, it's a paper.
Yeah, you know where to go in your building. If there's a fire, you should know something like this, which is really more of a disaster.
Yes.
Well, you got me scared. I'm going home tonight. What are the things that I should do at home to protect myself tonight if I've not done anything?
If you have not done anything.
Yeah. I don't have anything at home that's protecting me that I'm aware of.
Yes. I would say update all your devices. Make sure that all your devices are up to date. That's really like the first thing you can do.
Do you work with individuals as well? Because my concern is I work a lot from home.
Yes.
You know, I have an external hard drive that things are backed up on. That's it.
Yeah. We work mostly with companies.
Sure.
However, companies oftentimes have these work from home policies.
Yeah.
So remote work is a big thing. So we deal with remote workers and their technologies in place where we can make sure that even if you work from home, that whatever you do in your private time on your laptop does not affect what you do at work. So we can basically separate your computer almost like in 2 different systems. One that you can use at home and you can do whatever Marty does at home. And you can have like the second part of it if you want. So where you do whatever Marty does at work.
Okay. Very good. I'm available tonight, free to come over. While you're refreshing, and folks watching know that you're not drinking the gin yet, but
Yet.
I have 2 bottles here of gin just in case, people need to get loosened up a little bit. We can always serve them a little of our favorite gin. This is Himbrimi gin from Iceland. It's great. If you haven't tried it, you need to try it.
Hey, you didn't tell me that's an option.
Yeah, see, look at there. Yeah, no, listen. We could have a lot of fun with this. Yeah, no,
really,
listen.
this
And you promise not to work on their computers after this, right?
No.
Okay, good deal. So at the end of every interview, I like to ask some rapid fire questions so that we get your instantaneous response. We get to know you a little bit better and what things first come to your mind. So answer the first thing that comes to your mind. One cyber myth you wish every business owner would forget.
iPhones are safe.
The most common low-tech scam that still works in 2026.
The lost USB stick.
What's that?
If I put a USB stick somewhere in a meeting room, maybe I even label it with HR data or payroll, and I just leave it there. Somebody will pick it up and curiosity will strike. And they go and they plug it in.
And then whatever it does to your computer, it did.
Yep.
Wow. So nothing's for free, is it? Yes.
Nothing is
Hotel guest Wi-Fi or factory floor, where do you see the bigger hidden risk?
I would say hidden risk is probably the factory floor, because there are all these like production lines that often are connected to certain vendor systems where sometimes the IT does not even know that those systems are connected to the outside world.
Right. And it's so important for business owners to know that their vendors are protected as well as they are, right?
That is true.
Yeah. One personal habit that keeps you safer online than most people.
Question everything. If I receive something that was not 100% expected, I always deeply check the email address or the link or verify it or do a quick Google research. Ask Google or your AI, is this a scam?
Okay.
And I would do that on Google because AI tends, nowadays, we're filming this early 2026, AI still hallucinates sometimes. But if you find like hundreds or thousands of bad reviews about an online store, then you probably should not purchase that fantastic deal.
Okay. If you weren't working in IT and cybersecurity, what would you be doing?
Not working.
Not working at all? Yes.
No, I would travel with my partner and my 2 dogs, and I would teach martial arts all over the world.
Very good. One sentence of advice to a business owner who knows their systems are a mess and feels completely overwhelmed.
Give us a call. We'll figure it out.
Great answer. Alain, thank you so much for being here. It's been eye-opening for me, and I'm sure it's been eye-opening for our subscribers and viewers. You may have scared some people, but hopefully in a good way. And they'll have your contact information at the end of the podcast. So make sure that all of you that have been a little scared or maybe terrified are getting in contact with System Crew. And protect yourself, your family, and your friends. We'll put those links in the description. If this conversation helped you, share it with the person in your company who handles risk, IT, or money transfers. And for more conversations like this on AI, cybersecurity, business resilience, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment on our podcast. And also give us suggestions on topics that you'd be interested in. And thank you for being here.
Marty, thank you so
and
much.
thank you all for watching the Marty Davis Show. And we're learning every day here, and that's what's important. We protect ourselves and surround ourselves with people who know more than we do. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.